So, it's been a while, huh? I'd like to apologize for my absence. With college and work and everything dragging my free time down, I just haven't had the time to come back to this channel. But, since I'm now a college graduate, have more free time on my hands, and just got a new PC, I think it's time we make a return. New intro time!
3, 2, 1.
Yo, what is going on, my fellow gamers? K-Dog here, reporting for duty, and indie games. Those games created by individuals or small independent developers without the budget or technology that large AAA developers have. I think it's safe to say that we're living in the golden age of indie games. So many fantastic games of every genre with stories that seem to tackle more complicated and sensitive subjects head-on have come out of the industry ever since the days of Braid and Cave Story. There's pretty much an indie game for everyone out there. And these 10 games I'm about to talk about have kept me playing for hours upon hours and really show off the wonder and charm that indie games can offer. It was very difficult to rank only 10 games for this list because there's so many amazing titles out there that you could watch another list just like this with 10 completely different games on it. Definitely one of the toughest topics I'll ever rank. There will also be some fairly popular games not on this list because I have yet to play them, but I'm currently working on it. So sorry Hades, sorry Cuphead, and sorry Hollow Knight. I'll get to you one day, my sweet little insect you. Anyway, enough rambling, let's get this started. There are some games you end up missing out on when they first come out, only for you to play them years later and question yourself on how you were able to miss them at launch. And for me, that was the case with Inside, a little indie horror game developed by Playdead, the same devs behind Limbo. And I'm honestly surprised I didn't know about this game till I watched Green Scorpion's Top 15 Horror Games with Chica Arts. Go watch that, by the way. Anyway, shameless plug aside, the story is still pretty minimal, much like Limbo, but there's more mystery surrounding this narrative with subtle background details that draws the player in. Like early on, you see people being gathered by these men with guns and angry dogs being driven to a science facility, and you're just left to wonder, what the hell is all this for? You're left asking so many questions as you continue to plunge deeper and deeper into danger. The fact that you're going through this hellhole of a world as a little boy makes it immediately apparent how vulnerable you are, since, surprise, most things can end your life in a single hit. Woo! Gameplay is similar to Limbo as well, being a puzzle platformer where you really have to use your noggin to find your way out of the problem, and Playdead got pretty clever with the puzzles this time around. The flow of the game also feels great. The boy is just slow and weighty enough that you start sweating when something chases you, but it's very simplified with all your actions mapped to one button. Also, the game fits the mood beautifully in looks and sound. Dark, monochromatic dystopian world that's mostly silent, just ominous sounds and not many sound effects. It is downright haunting and unsettling in some points, but I'll let you play the game to figure all that out. Inside was certainly a fascinating yet horrifying experience that left my jaw on the floor when I finished the game. Definitely check this little indie horror gem out. Or you could just play this on Halloween.
Hello? Hello? Well, if you're hearing this...
Yeah. Man, remember when our favorite blue laughingstock was an actual blue laughingstock? Sega tried to be different for the sake of being different with the blue blur was not the IP to do that on. So thank God for indie games to help Sega learn from their mishaps, am I right? Well, the developers Galaxy Trail seem to think so since they were responsible for giving us Freedom Planet, an homage to classic Genesis Sonic, which ironically even started out as a Sonic fan game. So I think it's safe to say that Freedom Planet was the best Sonic game to come out of the mid-2010s. Do we really want to argue this?
Approved!
The gameplay is mostly similar to classic Sonic titles, but with a few changes. Rather than using health insurance based on how many rings you have a hit point meter that you fill after collecting these red leaves scattered across the levels, Each character makes use of attack and special buttons with an energy gauge. For example, Lilac has hair whips, an uppercut, and dive kick attacks, just to name a few. And her special is an 8-dimensional air dash that deals tons of damage and makes her invincible. And that's what I love about this game. The gameplay and visuals may be homages to the Genesis era of Sonic, but they still stand on their own and aren't trying to copy Sonic to a T. The story may be pretty simple, but it's well written and well thought out. And need I mention the awesome voice acting? Seriously, we've come a long way from what we were fighting for! And is it just me, or does the villain just really love to roast other kingdoms for no reason?
How did this happen? Our walls are impenetrable!
Your floor isn't.
Freedom Planet was a nice little surprise that turned out into something greater than I expected, and I am glad that's the case. Probably gave Sega their ideas on who to develop their next 2D Sonic game, and God knows it was for the better. You gotta love a game that pays respects to a AAA gamer genre. For this instance, what if we took the core gameplay aspects and fun factor of those old school first-person shooters like Doom and Wolfenstein, and gave it the glow-up it respectfully deserves? Well, my friends, you get Proteus. I honestly have not heard of this game up until like a month ago, and woo boy, this game developed by only 2 guys was truly a surprise. In this game, you play as a corrupted agent of Proteus, the mysterious creator of the player and the game world. Your only goal is to destroy Proteus and anything that gets in your way. And that's all the story you need. Now turn your brain off and let the Splatterfest begin. Sorry, I just had to get it out. The game feels great to play. It's fast-paced, there's a variety of weapons to unlock, and it's so satisfying to just rip apart your enemies and let the over-the-top bloodbath flow. The game also looks and sounds awesome. Combining the old-school shooter aesthetic with 3D models that have sprite filters applied to them, alongside new lighting and rendering techniques, as well as the dark, gloomy art style, it all makes Proteus a unique-looking game and something that immediately drew me in. As for sound, while the guns feel and sound so good and meaty, the soundtrack also gives those classic and modern shooter vibes as we've seen in many Doom and Wolfenstein titles. It's just so hard to not have a headbanging session when you're constantly fighting for your life. My only real gripe is that it looks a bit too much like Doom. Seriously, if this was a different setting entirely, then it would have been the perfect glow-up the old school shooter genre needed. But as it stands, it's still a bloody good time, and one of those games you'll play just for the fun of destroying anything that gets in your way. Ah, sweet, sweet bliss. Honestly, this list just wouldn't feel right without everyone's favorite belly dancing half genie hero. Well, it turns out our wishes have been granted, since number 7 on my list is her third adventure, Shantae and the Pirate's Curse. There's always been something so different about this series compared to other Metroidvanias that's always so fascinating. Being a character-driven narrative, that's something you usually don't see, and it's a welcome change I'll gladly have. Ironically, in this game, Shantae doesn't even have her genie powers.
I'm sorry, what?
She's now human after the events of Risky's Revenge, yet somehow this still turns out to be my favorite Shantae game even without the powers she's most known for. Shit, what's next? You're gonna tell me I adore a character because of their catchphrases?
Zappy! You came just in time. I'm saved. You can call me Yunaka. Hiya, Papaya.
Hiya, Papaya?
Huh. I've never heard that one before.
No comment. Yet for some reason, I sometimes prefer this gameplay style more than Shantae's actual powers. The fuck? Sure, her animal transformations are something that make her special, but it kinda bogs down the pace a bit, like how it is running around as Heavy.
Yes.
However, in Pirate's Curse, Shantae has to reluctantly work together with her arch-nemesis Risky Boots, and over time you collect Risky's pirate gear to use in combat and exploration, and I love how these play so well off of each other, as some can even be chained together. You could be flying around with Risky's pirate hat only to chain that into a poker stick attack with her sword. Seriously, they're not even trying to hide it. Sure, I may prefer Shantae's animal transformations overall, but this alternative gives us another fun and rewarding way to explore Sequin Land with smart design choices that mesh together with what this game wants to be. The visuals and music are also another highlight, and man, do the portraits look so good in HD. Don't get me wrong, Half Genie Hero and Seven Sirens also do a lot of things right, but Pirate's Curse is still the Shantae game to this day that does the most right with what it wants to be. And she doesn't even need to do any belly dancing. 2015 was a really solid year for gaming. Grand Theft Auto 5, The Witcher 3, Fallout 4. But you know what? Those games were merely a cakewalk because 2015 was the year of Undertale, practically taking the internet by storm with 9 out of 10s and perfect scores across the board. It was the game to play in 2015. So why the hell am I putting it outside the top 5? Yup, I just had to. Had to be the one guy who didn't put Undertale high on a list like this. My credibility just went down further than Ubisoft's stock prices. Ha! Jokes aside, this is still a fantastic game and one I'd still recommend to anyone. But I do feel like the hype was a little too overblown and overwhelming. With all that said, this game definitely moved me. Felt more like an experience rather than a video game. The gameplay is relatively simple for an RPG, but it's so clean and polished, and I love how the boss fights can just completely change the rules in a fun way on a whim. I love how the music shows off different motifs for all the characters throughout the game, and it's one of my favorite soundtracks in gaming. I love how a complex story such as this one can really resonate with a lot of people, myself included, as well as the characters just being so lovable. You got the troll Sans, the big ball of sunshine Papyrus, the quirky Undyne, and so much more. I love that the different paths in the game, depending on your choices, makes the journey feel different every time you replay it. This game was honestly such a huge surprise that came out of nowhere on Kickstarter and was a big success. Toby Fox certainly delivered on a game that feels great to play even 8 years later. And with Deltarune now on Chapter 2, there will be a lot more to enjoy from this brilliant man, and he has all my respect if Undertale isn't evident enough of that. I say that, but yeah, this game is also weird. I'm just happy that this game found a lot of people to love it. Or you could just be one of those pricks who consider Undertale was made by the gods.
And I am not going to have my reputation in that department tarnished by a bunch of fucking limp dick, sour note, flatter than their girlfriend's flexible tempo dipshits. Got it? Get the fuck out of my sight before I demolish you. I can still fucking see you, Mini-Me!
Now, it's one thing for a small independent team to make a game, but it's even more of a feat for just a single person making a game. We've seen this already with games like Undertale, but aside from the music, voice acting, and some writing, Dean Dodro made a majority of Dustin Elysian Tale all by himself. That is really impressive considering how much effort seems to have been put into this game. The story revolves around our main character Dust trying to regain his memories after he suffers everyone's favorite plot point, amnesia.
I detect sarcasm.
With a sentient sword Aura and the adorable Fidget, Dust must now travel all around this world in search for answers on whatever the hell is going on. The story may seem trope-heavy, but they play some well while also differentiating some for the better. Dust, for being an amnesiac, was never boring in the slightest, being a pretty selfless character wanting to help out whoever needed it. And Fidget is just absolutely adorable. Dustin Elysian Tale is an action RPG with Metroidvania and hack-and-slash elements to it. The combat is really fun and intuitive, allowing for many opportunities for combo strings with several techniques that you gain throughout the game. Of course, being part Metroidvania, there's a lot to explore with lots of treasures, enemies, and characters to learn more about.
Duh.
And it's so rewarding to find everything the game has to offer. The visuals are flat out gorgeous, with characters animated beautifully, the environments are varied and have excellent design, and the music is an absolute godsend on your ears. The only real complaint I have is that the boss fights are pretty weak. In fact, they're almost as bad as Bethesda when they launched their games. I said almost.
It just works.
But since there's only a few of them in the actual game, you're allowed to ignore it. Dustin Elysian Tale is gorgeous, it's engaging, it's fun as hell, and it's just a great experience overall. The passion one person must have to develop most of a masterful piece of art such as this, it's downright incredible. No, not even a joke for this ending bit. The game really is that good. A very funny thing about indie games is that they really like to take turns in the spotlight, stealing attention away from other great indie titles. Almost a lot like how Fate's cast is in the story, which doesn't help them out in the slightest. For the longest time, the attention was on Braid and Cave Story. In 2013, there was SteamWorld Dig and the Stanley Parable, and a year later, almost everyone was raving about Shovel Knight, and for a damn good reason. This game is a love letter to classic NES platformers that captures the spirit of those games. A quirky premise with just enough heart that we take it seriously enough, a diverse set of bosses like Mega Man, world maps similar to Mario 3, and a moveset that would make Link or Uncle Scrooge proud. Still to be debated. Not to mention the difficulty is truly reminiscent of the era. The level design also really speaks out, taking the best ideas and concepts of the classics while having the modern technology to be able to polish it up. And Yacht Club Games don't just play Castlevania and Mega Man, they appreciate them. And that's not even all the game has to offer. There's of course the armor sets that drastically change your playstyle, the cheat codes, which are always a good time, and most notably the DLC expansions, which allow you to play as Spectre Knight, Plague Knight, and King Knight. The best part about the DLC is that these are all different adventures. They may be the same locations, but they all have their own stories and ways they play, and it's honestly amazing how different it feels when you go through a level using these different characters. And that music, one of my favorite soundtracks in video games. There is not a single bad song in this soundtrack, and it is just so memorable, and I dare you to try and change my mind. Yacht Club Games knew what they wanted to do, and it just works so well. And with Shovel Knight Dig out now, which I really need to get on that, there's a lot more we might be seeing from our favorite Shovel Warrior. I wonder how Scrooge McDuck took it when Shovel Knight copied his pogo stick bouncing. Oh. Right. There's always that one game that everyone loves that feels like it was made for them. Like they match your personal tastes so well that they may as well be inspired by your internet search history. Because that's all I can think about when playing Crosscode. I was recommended this underrated gem by a friend on a Patreon server, and I was going into this completely blind. Little did I know that this game felt like it was just made for me. An action RPG with fast-paced and satisfying combat, Zelda-esque dungeons and puzzles, a retro-inspired pixel art style, and set in the world of an MMO filled with so much personality and wonder to it? Hell yes, sign me up! Crosscode is centered around Leia, who wakes up in the MMO Crossworlds in a cargo ship with no memory of her past and is unable to speak. So it will be your job to explore Crossworlds, meet new friends, and regain your lost memories. The game starts slow, but starts to really pick itself up after the first dungeon, and it is well worth it. The story has some great twists, the characters are pretty likable, especially Emile, where I swear to God, her fear of bugs comes from another certain orange-haired character.
Oh? Please don't come any closer to me! Huh?
But in my opinion, the gameplay is what really makes this game so impressive. The combat with a mix of ranged and melee attacks along with elemental variations of said attacks is so rewarding, fluid, and fun to mess around with. The skill trees and overall customization of your weapons and armor just make the gameplay feel that much more layered.
Layers!
The platforming and dungeons are also really well designed and are really good at testing your mettle with puzzle solving. Also, need I mention this game looks and sounds phenomenal? Gorgeous and diverse environments, a memorable soundtrack, and sounds during combat that have a lot of oomph to them, and it feels great. All in all, German developer Radical Fish Games did a wonderful job making a single-player experience in an MMO feel alive as if you were actually there. This game is genuinely amazing, and I haven't even beaten the game yet or played the DLC, so who knows if this will take my #1 spot in the future. Certainly shows an MMO world better than Sword Art Online did.
What?
2017 may as well be called the year of the 3D platforms, and people will be right to call it as such. The genre was dormant for a decade, and this was the year they came back in full force. So many great games came out at this time, but there was one little crowdfunded project that caught my eye. A Hat in Time. On the surface, the game looks like an ordinary love letter to fans of those 3D collectathons like Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie. But deep down, in my opinion, the game has a lot more to offer than just that. The story revolves around this kid with a hat named, well, Hat Kid, that has to retrieve these timepieces she lost on a nearby planet that are her fuel source to get back home, so she must search through every nook and cranny to gather them all and return home. If I had to describe this game in 3 words, it would be charming and whimsical. The story may be bare bones, but the game makes up for it with some really funny characters like the 2 birds and a rivalry for cinema supremacy, and especially the Snatcher, one of my favorite characters in video games.
I'm not heartless. Ever so often, I sneak into mailboxes and steal letters, then deliver them to my minions. That way, it's almost like someone cares about them. But our last mailman has gone. Poof. You'll have to do.
Besides just being all cutesy, Hat Kid is surprisingly really mischievous and smug. Seriously, there are several moments in the game where she shows these traits of her personality off, whether it's her interactions with the Mafia, yes, the Mafia, or even in her diary, where it states that she only defaces Snatcher's contract asking to be his friend to spite him. Man, this is some stuff that Stewie would be proud of, and I love that. Controlling Hat Kid is also a delight. The combination of a dash in mid-air and being able to jump out of it for precise jumps, along with the ability to create other hats and buy badges for more special abilities, makes her one of the most enjoyable characters to control in any 3D platformer. God, this game is just so freaking cute. There haven't been many other games that deliver a magical experience quite like this one. And all of this isn't even accounting for the DLC, which is really good as well as local co-op and online multiplayer with a girl named Bokin. This game is so freaking cute! Bravo, Gears for breakfast. Bravo. So far, we've seen some truly incredible games from all kinds of genres. We've climbed up the ranks, but now we've reached the peak. Celeste. I adore this game. It is a masterpiece. It exemplifies the best aspects of 2D platformers with things I didn't even think I wanted. You play as Madeline, a girl with a simple goal: climb Mount Celeste. The game gets a little deeper, but not by much, and it doesn't really need to. There's enough dialogue so that the story holds some weight, but that's not why this game is at number 1. It's the gameplay and the theme of challenge that ties everything together like a nice Christmas present under the tree. You have 3 moves: jump, dash, and climb. You either get through the obstacles or you don't. It's all up to you. And at some points, the rooms you find yourself in are going to feel damn near impossible. But that's the entire point. The difficulty for the next room is just above your skill level and is within reach if you step out of your comfort zone a little bit. Plus, everything from the quick respawn times to the encouraging messages on the loading screens just inspire you to keep trying. It's honestly the most perfect level progression I have ever experienced in a video game. This all even ties into the story and themes. Madeline's only here to overcome something legitimately challenging and to test herself. The game tackles themes like anxiety and self-doubt, but here it's more of a case of show, don't tell. Actually, it's even better than that. It tasks you to break through these hardships and beat the level. That is such genius game design I could never try to replicate. And oh yeah, did I mention this game's challenging as hell? The game will beat you down senseless at times, but it's not malicious like Super Meat Boy. Still not salty, you meaty fuck. Every room being just above your skill level gives you more of an incentive to keep moving forward. What else could I say? Celeste is a masterpiece in game design and challenge. Not to mention the game's pixel art looks nice and the soundtrack fits the atmosphere beautifully. There's a reason this game was nominated for Game of the Year in 2018. Go play this game. You will not regret it. This has been K-Dog. Hope you all have a great day, and I have a very special announcement before I end this video. Yep, I got myself some PNG tuber art. Special thanks once again to PokeKing, who made this possible. You did a fantastic job, and I cannot wait to use these in my future videos. Also, please make sure to like and comment if you enjoyed the video, as it helps me out a lot. And also hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell for any time I post any future videos. Hope to see you all next time. Take care.